All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dustin Ganay, and this is Open Minds, Open Hearts. And we are here at session 10. Started this a few months back and already at session 10. That's why I'm wearing a collar. I dressed up for you guys today. Very excited that we made it. And thank you to everyone that's been supporting and coming to the sessions, checking out the videos on YouTube. Really appreciate it. So today we're going to be talking about flowing with the river of life, a little tribute to my pops, the fish and wildlife biologist. So I think you'll find that the river of life is applicable to all of us, not just fish experts. So more to come on that. In case you missed the last session, session 9, we talked about mindfulness of body, feelings, mind, and teachings, and went into the Satipattanas, which is a Buddhist practice around mindfulness. Covered some really great learnings there, and that's all up on YouTube. So you can search for Open Minds, Open Hearts, or OMO, OMOH, and you should be able to find those on YouTube. Soon they will be available on my website, openmindsopenhearts.org. I'm in the process of building the site. I've made a lot of headway in the last few weeks, so I'm hoping to get that released in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for the new website. As always, these are free sessions. If you'd like to donate, you can through Venmo or PayPal, which is the links are in my emails or on my YouTube videos. But as always, there's no pressure for that. These are free sessions and really just here to provide this service to you and whoever else is interested. So I appreciate some of you telling me that you've been spreading the word and telling others to come to the website or to email me, Dustin@openmindsopenhearts.org. Always happy to include more people into the community that we're cultivating here. Also have some new artwork and presentation styles that I want to share with you guys. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So let's see. All right. So yeah. So I'm trying a new theme with my slides with imagery now. So every session has its own unique image associated with it. And today we're talking about flowing with the river of life. And, this is, like I said, my dad is a fish and wildlife biologist, and I actually grew up spending a lot of time on the river and going on river excursions and snorkeling trips and rafting trips. And so being on the river is kind of near and dear to my heart. But really, when we think about this river of life, it's incredible how many correlations there are to our lives and to an actual river, as we think about flowing with the currents, going with the flow, not fighting, not trying to swim upstream, right? Experiencing white water and rapids and kind of those rocky parts of our lives. And then ultimately, our river of life empties into a wider source, the ocean of loving awareness, if you will. And we all have this source that we're returning to, or perhaps returning to through our meditation mindfulness practice, through prayer, through exercise, gardening, cooking. Where are we finding our source, right? When we need to escape maybe that constant motion and current in the river of life. So we'll be exploring some themes around that. And I also have a guided meditation for you at the end, along with another new poem that I've written that I'll share with you. So we will set an intention. We'll read some inspired writings. We'll talk a little bit about the mindfulness of the river and the teachings that it has in store for us. Also, we'll do a guided meditation at the end with a visualization on how we're journeying down our river of life. And then we'll have a little conversation at the end. So setting an intention for this session and beyond, when we think about what our intention today is, it could be, my intention is to go with the flow more in my life. My intention is to embrace change and stop swimming upstream. My intention is to surrender to what I cannot change and be at peace with that. So go ahead and just take a moment to reflect on your intention for today's session, your intention on your river of life, and what that means for you. And I hope an intention has come to your awareness, and you can use that as your guiding principle throughout this session and the rest of the day. So let's read some inspired writings. Water is perhaps one of the greatest metaphors for all things meditation and spiritual. Tons of authors and spiritual leaders have used the metaphors of water and rivers to communicate what is often hard to communicate in language. This world of awareness and a more soulful essence. So the Buddha, of course, very simple. He says, life is a river always flowing. Do not hold on to things. Work hard. And the work hard part at the end was interesting. And I was trying to dig in to get the full quote, and I couldn't find it. But to me, it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition of going with the flow of the river of life, not holding on, but also this idea of working hard, right? Like, as we're going down the river of life, it's not always going to be this smooth sailing, perfect journey, right? Like, there's going to be bumps in the road. We're going to need to navigate down rough waters. And I think that's what the Buddha is getting at with, yeah, you're going to go with the flow, but there's also going to be a lot of work involved, right? It's not just smooth sailing all the time. But if you're able to let go of things and without attachment, it's going to be a little bit smoother. You're going to be in the flow rather than fighting against it. Bruce Lee, a first timer to Open Minds, Open Hearts. Also not just a great martial artist, but also a really profound thinker. Bruce Lee said, "Be water, my friend. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend." And this is great. It's such a Zen idea to become water and to be formless and shapeless like water. The water becomes the cup, right? Like, there's no ego involved when we become water, right? We're able to adapt. We're able to shape ourselves to the situation at hand, and when we think about life as this river, this is particularly powerful, right? Because rather than separating ourselves from the river, perhaps we are that river. Perhaps we are that water flowing, right? Like, so it's really kind of profound to think about the nature of water. And humans are 60% water, so this really is our, scientifically, our reality is that we are mostly water. Um, so there's a lot of lessons to learn there. And then finally, um, the serenity prayer, I think, is very apt here, by Reinhold Niebuhr. And he says, uh, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think this really struck me as we think about the river of life, because we can't change the river itself. We can't change the direction in which it flows. We can't control the rocks or obstacles in our way. But we can have autonomy and influence over how we're floating down this river, right? There are some things we can change. And so we need courage to be able to change those things and kind of redirect our vessel. But knowing the difference of what we can and cannot change is powerful. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more in just a minute. But as we kind of bring our mindful awareness to the nature of a river, as we kind of think about this metaphor, the river of life, where is your river of life flowing? We all have these different rivers that we're on, and or at least it feels like we're all on different rivers. Perhaps we're more likely on the same river than we may know it. But often it feels like we're by ourselves on our river of life. And, of course, we want this beautiful, serene, mountainous stream where it's calm and there's beautiful forests surrounding us. That's of course the ideal situation, right? But where is this river ultimately flowing to? Is there an ocean or a source that your river of life is working towards? For some, it could be a spiritual source, heaven. For others, it may be nature or reconnecting with a loved one. We all have these places where we fill up our cup and refill our cup with inspiration and love. And so where is your river of life flowing today? And where are you trying to direct? Where are you trying to direct that flow? Because I think we can all agree swimming upstream is pretty unproductive, unless, of course, you're a salmon, which they do by nature. And it's kind of interesting as we double click into salmon in their lives, because they usually grow up in kind of higher elevation parts of a river, sometimes up to the mountains. And then they usually end up, as they get older, they end up migrating down to the ocean or sea. And then near the end of their lives, they end up migrating back upstream to their original birthplace. And they know this through a sense of smell. And it's an incredibly powerful sense of smell and instincts that drive the salmon back upstream to their original birthplace, so that they can spawn eggs and fertilize those eggs and give birth to the next generation, ultimately leading to their death. This upstream battle is not without peril. They kind of give one last reproductive moment, and then their lives cease to exist. And it's a powerful and poetic moment, in the salmon's life. And often it feels like we're swimming upstream, with no avail. And, we're often attached and clinging to the past, right? Which feels like we're swimming upstream because we're just clinging, we're just holding on. We don't want to go down the river. We're scared what the next turn in the river is going to reveal to us. But humans are not salmon. We're not meant to go back to our birthplace to give birth and then die. That's not our journey. You know, um, so so really, what are those moments where it feels like we're swimming upstream, and how can we realign to work with the current, not fight against it, right? And speaking of currents, are you ready for the rapids? Um, if anyone has been whitewater rafting before, I can tell you it can be really amazing and fun, but also terrifying. Um, the image on the left, you have this family, they're all wearing life vests, they all look happy. They have a guide with them, kind of guiding them down the river. This looks like a mitigated risk, right? Like they signed up for this, they knew what they were getting into. The kids probably had some swim lessons before. So they're having a good time because they were prepared, right? Like they were prepared for these rapids. Um, and the guy on the right, I mean, you can see that he's a professional when it comes to riding difficult waters, right? He's going off this massive waterfall. He's an expert in facing challenging situations on the water, right? And so knowing where we're at in our skill level to address the challenges in our life and being really honest with that, I think is really vital for us to weather the storm and ride these rapids, right? So we can't just go into the whitewater without any training or experience or preparation. Um, it's important that we are prepared and that we know what we're getting ourselves into. And sometimes we don't always know, and maybe we're just learning in the moment, and that's okay too. But we gotta stay mindful in those moments. We gotta stay aware. We don't want to start getting sucked into fear, doubt, and worry, because as you can see with these rafters, they have to stay focused on staying afloat and getting down the river safely. So, how are we navigating the currents in our lives on our river of life? When the river is smooth and calm, it's not too hard, right? Like we've kind of figured out some things. Maybe we have a career and we have loved ones, friends, family. We've cultivated this life for ourselves, and when the river is smooth, like life is going pretty smooth. Um, but what about when the currents aren't so smooth, and maybe we don't have a nice strong canoe or vessel, but maybe we're in a little inner tube, or maybe we don't have a boat at all. Maybe we're just in the middle of the whitewater, and it's just us against the elements, right? Um, how do we navigate the currents then? So this idea that the Buddha talked about of, the river of life and letting go, but also kind of working to stay afloat. We can't let go so much that we just give up. Like we still have to work, we still have to navigate through these currents. um, and because ultimately that navigation will lead us to our source. And for most rivers that's the ocean. But what is your source? Where do you fill up your cup? How do you find love and peace and meaning, all of those things that give you purpose in life? How do you reconnect with that? Maybe through meditation or prayer or service, through sport, exercise. There's a lot of different ways we can kind of connect to this source. Um, and it's individual for everyone. So uh, so okay, we kind of went through some kind of deeper spiritual ideas, little bit poetic, and some of you may be saying, okay, Dustin, that's great, but like practically speaking, how do we weather all the craziness in our world right now? Like, there's COVID, there's an election, there's chaos. I'm not feeling very poetic right now. I need some like practical steps to help me navigate these rough waters. And that's where I think this circle of concern and circle of influence can be a real powerful platform mechanism for navigating tough situations. And this is from Stephen Covey in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so there's this concept, right, of the circle of concern and circle of influence. And the circle of concern, this is really things that are outside of ourselves, things that we just can't control, right? It often puts us in a reactive state where we feel a lot of negative emotions and we feel powerless to change the situation. So this could be the news, politics, disease, death, kind of these big topics that are there, and we really can't change them a whole lot, right? We can't change the way that politicians act or how negative the latest news is, right? But we can have some influence over those things in our own personal life, and that's where the circle of influence comes in. So these could be things inside of ourselves or outside of ourselves where we can influence change, right? This is a more proactive focus. So rather than just reacting to things, we're proactively creating our destiny. And we're doing that with positive emotion through creative problem solving. So our circle of influence could be how we inform ourselves, how we vote, how we communicate with others, setting goals and intentions for ourselves. So there's a lot of different ways that we can have influence and autonomy over our own lives, and maybe even influence some of the folks around us as well. We can never change anybody, but perhaps we can have some positive influence on our coworkers or friends, family. Um, so I wanted to share a quick little video that I think is kind of a nice illustration of the circle of concern and circle of influence.
The Circle of Influence, a model taken from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All of us have a wide range of concerns in our lives: our housing, our health, our friends and family, the environment, how to lose weight, animal rights, how to put on weight, etc., etc. Within this whole universe of our concerns, there are some things we can influence and some things we can only stay concerned about. What we do have is a choice about where we focus our attention and energy. We can choose to focus all our attention on the area that is outside our influence. We can get annoyed about the shortcomings of other people. We can blame government, global capitalism, the weather, a rotten childhood, bad luck, or even fluoride in toothpaste. This focus leads to more and more blaming and accusing, and to feelings of victimization. This negative way of thinking, accompanied by inaction to change things, results in the circle of influence shrinking. Alternatively, we can choose to focus on things that we can influence. This does not mean just the more immediate or trivial concerns. It might mean focusing on those aspects of really huge problems that we can exert some influence over. Influence does not mean direct control. we can influence things in an indirect way, for example, in our own personal daily behaviour. By focusing attention and energy on the circle of influence, we become increasingly proactive. The energy we expend is enlarging. Each little victory motivates us to find new ways of exerting influence. We don't waste energy on things we can do nothing about, but we direct it towards what we can change. With each step, we feel stronger and more creative, and so our circle of influence expands. It often happens that in widening our circle of influence, we also widen our circle of concern. It becomes worth caring about some of the really challenging things in our world if we learn that we can influence them. It can be incredibly liberating to realize that, in choosing how to respond to circumstances, we affect those circumstances.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I love kind of that idea too, that our circle of concern may grow as our circle of influence grows. And um, yeah, I'd like to kind of maybe replace circle of concern with circle of awareness, because we can have awareness about things outside of ourselves, like politics or climate change or the pandemic. We can have a wider awareness about it, without going into the concern and the worry and the fear, but while still recognizing that we do have influence even over these really, really big things in the world right now, right? Like, we can't change the world, but we can change ourselves. We can influence the world around us. And so we do have a lot more power than I think we often give ourselves credit. So I hope that kind of gave you a few nuggets to think about there as we go into our guided meditation. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up a little bit of music here, or rather a nice river soundtrack for us. And as always, go ahead and get in a nice, comfortable seat as we get ready for our guided meditation. Hopefully you have some back support. Just begin to arrive and get comfortable. Well, let's see. And actually, yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're all set. Okay. So let's begin. Hello and welcome. So today we will be doing a guided meditation on being fully present and embracing changes on the river of life. And as we go through the meditation and visualization today, if at any time you feel any dis-ease or uncomfortable, come back to your breath and allow the breath to be your anchor point as we go on this journey down the river of life. So to start, I'd like us to imagine that we're in a beautiful mountain river surrounded by trees, and it's a blue sky with birds singing. Just a pleasant river, wide and smooth, really just flowing with this river of life. Not a rock or obstacle in our path. We're really just comfortable. Perhaps we're in a boat or vessel with supplies and a life jacket. We're prepared and ready, and really feel at ease with our time on this river of life. We're really fully present in the moment. We're not holding on to the past. We're not trying to swim upstream. Just going with the flow of this river and where it's leading us. And perhaps there's some other moments in your life where you have felt this mindful presence, perhaps in your meditation practice or doing something that you love, being with loved ones. There's these moments in life where we really feel present on this river of life. And it really kind of fills our cup. And as we move along this journey, we start to see some rocks up ahead. So the water looks like it's getting a bit faster up ahead. Perhaps there's some white water and some rapids. And some of that fear and doubt maybe starts to creep in a little bit. Maybe we start to get a little concerned about what's to come. And we're kind of quickly thrown off of our present moment awareness as we're preparing for the rapids to ensue. And perhaps there's some moments like this in your life currently, or perhaps moments from the past where you could kind of see the storm coming, and maybe you got caught in kind of a negative downward spiral, thinking about worst case scenarios and whatnot, and just kind of acknowledging some of these rapids in our lives. And before we start spinning down a negative thought path, perhaps we could focus on some of the positive skills and attributes we've developed to direct and manage challenging situations. We've all gone through rough waters before, and we've all prepared ourselves in different ways. And so maybe this isn't as bad as we think it is. As we get further and closer to the rapids, and the water gets faster and louder, the rocks get bigger, and we see that, okay, this is a challenge that's coming up, for me in my life. And we have a few options. We either just try and get out of it, right? We can't really go upstream because the force of the river is too strong. And really at this point, we can't even get out of it because the river is pulling us with it. So we really only have one choice but to surrender to the flow of the river of life and navigate the waters as best we know how. But we've been here before. We feel prepared, or maybe we don't feel prepared. That's okay too. And I'm sure that there's kind of these whitewater moments in your life as you reflect on maybe some challenges that you've experienced recently, or challenges in the past where you've learned valuable lessons of how to navigate rough waters. And as we continue to flow with these strong currents, we can see that there's a small but considerable waterfall ahead of us. And we have a strong feeling that our boat is going to capsize on this waterfall. And sure enough, we get to the waterfall and our boat does not remain upright. We capsize and we're thrown from our vessel, and we are in the elements. It's just us and the river of life. And we feel exposed, we feel vulnerable. But we also have been in this situation before too. It's familiar. And we have two choices. We can either slip into the fear, the doubt, the worry about what terrible thing is going to happen next, or we embrace this current moment, being without a boat, being in the rapids, and we just try to stay mindful and aware without judging, without projecting our past or our future onto the present moment. We're just acknowledging where we're at in this challenging situation, investigating what emotions or feelings are coming up for us, and really being okay with that and what is coming up for us, and just being with those emotions and nurturing those emotions. If we're feeling vulnerable, if we're feeling fear for whatever thrown from the boat moment we have been involved with, that's okay. We might even start judging the situation as bad or not good. But maybe we take a step back from the judgment, and maybe getting thrown from the boat actually isn't as bad as we think. Maybe this could be one of the greatest learning and growth experiences of our lives. Maybe this moment of getting thrown from the boat is the most profound transformation that our lives have ever known. We're not going to know that if we start judging the situation and labeling it as bad, right? We're only going to really know that if we're fully present in this situation, navigating, going with the flow, not fighting the currents of the river of life. And perhaps upon further reflection, we realize that we never were actually thrown from our boat at all. Perhaps these were all imaginings in our head, where we took a certain situation and we turned it into a very bad and negative situation, but perhaps it wasn't as bad as we perceived. And perhaps we were never thrown from the boat. Maybe we weren't even in the rapids. We could have been in that peaceful, calm boat all along, but our minds and our thoughts ran away with themselves. And so as we come back to that place of peace and calm, we begin to approach our source, our ocean of life, as the river flows into this source. We find incredible abundance of love and compassion, of peace. As we reconnect with our source, This could be a spiritual source for you. It may be a connection to a higher power or your angels. It may be connection with nature or connection with your body through movement, through physical exercise, through eating healthy. However you connect with your source, with your capacity to fill up your cup. I'd like you to go to that place now and know that this source, this ocean of your life is available to you at all times. You know, it may feel like we're in the middle of the rapids. It may feel like we've been thrown from our boat. And perhaps we really have. But we also have the opportunity to come back to our source, come back to what fills up our cup when we can feel that our cup is getting depleted. And with that, as we begin to end this journey on our river, I would like to share with you a poem that I wrote entitled River of Loving Awareness. I am loving awareness. I am bliss. I am the unconditional, non-judging, loving presence inside all hearts. I am the immortal, the eternal, deeper than the deepest ocean of light, submerged in the depths of heavenly radiance. My ego dissolves, my desires disintegrate, flowing with the river of life, the river of loving awareness. I cannot fight this current, for it has the strength of 1,000 rivers. Yet it is wide, smooth, and flowing in peace. Only a fool would fight its currents. But when I surrender to the river of loving awareness, I am swept away to mystical lands. I see my teachers and angels along the way. From beyond the clouds of heaven they call, beckoning me to follow the tides, to be in the flow with the river of life. Even when I'm clinging to the shore, in my darkest hour, trying to escape its currents, I ascend the steepest mountains of self to avoid the river's constant change. Yet its tides rise to where I dwell. On the summits of my ego, I am pulled in once again, flowing with the river of life, the river of loving awareness. As this mighty river flows, it arrives at the ocean of loving awareness. Pure love and light as far as the eye can see. Though it may be rough on the surface, at its depths is a deep sense of stillness and calm. A place where every atom dances to a universal vibration. Every molecule reverberates in praise of this divine dance. I am an ocean of loving awareness. I am the mist pulled from the ocean's surface. I am the rain clouds that pour over the land, giving life to earth below. To become the river of loving awareness once again. To return to the ocean of loving awareness once more. I am this awareness, friend, but so are you. Though you may think you are bound to the shore, clinging to the world, grasping your thoughts and things, open up your heart and bear witness to the river of loving awareness flowing inside. Don't fight the current. Don't deny its existence. It's already pulling you with it. Stop fighting and start flowing. I am loving awareness. We are loving awareness, flowing with the river of life, the river of loving awareness.
Hey friends, Dustin here. If you enjoyed that session, go in the description below and click the sign up link to get on my mailing list for future sessions like this, the first and third Wednesday of every month. I hope to see you there. Click the register so that I can email you the Zoom info to join these sessions in real time. Thank you so much.